Victor Dweck?
Yeah. Let's just redo that.
Okay, yeah, I'm good.
I do want to start with our names. I think it's important.
Okay, yeah. Hey guys, welcome back to the Reverend and the Reprobate podcast. Today, I will be the fun one.
Yep.
I'm Lucas Pinkert. I'm the Reverend.
Lucas
and
Pinkert, the
me,
Reverend and the fun one.
Yeah, alongside me as always is my sidekick,
Guitar player.
the guy who used to play, Danley Gibson.
Danley Gibson.
How you
That's
doing
right.
today, Big Dan?
Dude, awesome.
Yeah.
We've got one of my favorite comedians on.
We scored huge with this one. Now, if you don't know, our show is two best buds. We've been best friends for years. We are interviewing people that we have no business talking to, and today is
Nailed it again.
Prima facie
Nailed it
evidence
again.
of that. We got to interview a guy that you put on my radar several months ago,
Victor
Dweck. Yeah, so talk to us about Vic.
Victor Dweck. As he gets into, he'll get into some of his history, but I found him on YouTube. He does little short sketches.
Yep.
Hilarious stuff. Just hilarious. He's got one where he's got Gilbert Gottfried, the famous voice of Iago.
Yeah, from Aladdin.
Yeah, where he tackles kneeling, and then one kind of cancel culture, some of the mainstream media going after people on the right. So and he's just hilarious. He's brilliant, hilarious. He's shopping a new show around, so we get to talk to him about that.
Yeah, it's super fun guy, really down to earth. We've got some links for you in the show notes and in the description of this. A couple of things, just a warning before you get into this for some of our listeners who might be listening with their kids. There are some of these links that are really funny, but they are not safe for work and not family friendly.
Yeah, the Gilbert Gottfried one is hilarious, but he is not Iago in this one. He's doing his stand-up bit.
There is some language and stuff in there, so just fair warning. But Victor's a great guy, really funny. We're excited to see where he's going. So enjoy the interview. This is the Reverend and the Reprobate with Victor Dweck. You're fired.
Let's say, which camera do I play? I'm doing both.
The man, the myth, the legend, Victor Dweck. And I'll let
Victor
you
Dweck.
intro him because you have been talking to me about Victor Dweck for months and months and months. You berated me to watch a YouTube video about first responders, and I was finally like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I found the guy absolutely hilarious. So why don't you tell us who we're interviewing
I think
today?
I told you.
Can I interrupt you guys before
No.
you even go any further?
Go for it.
What, can you do a less creepy introduction?
I don't think so.
Hey, listen, you've been talking about this guy for months.
He has. So he gets
and
these
you've
like
been begging me.
he gets these micro obsessions with people. And what was it? A couple of weeks ago, it was Sassy Justice, which is just about one of the most awful things on the internet.
Sassy Justice, Trey Parker, Matt Stone. They do what's the facial where they change faces?
Yeah,
it's a new thing. Deep
They
fake.
do the deep fake.
They do a deep fake, and it's Trump, and it's Matt Stone. No, it's Trey Parker, and then they replace him with Trump.
That actually sounds fun. It sounds awesome.
It was interesting for
about
about
funny,
90 seconds.
except that on one episode, I talked about it a lot. And then we had to go back and edit it. I'm like, why am I talking so much about this stupid episode?
Right.
But Victor Dweck was something that you talked about for months at a time, and so I knew that it wasn't just a flash in the pan, that this guy actually might have something.
Yeah, so being super creepy, I've been following you for a while.
Thank you.
But no, so the fireman, I think that may have been the first sketch that I saw. I remember
That was our first sketch, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that I found that hilarious. Which, if I was to boil it down, well, tell you what. Why don't you tell me about it? Since you made it.
Yeah. So the firefighter that was our first sketch. I did that 2 years ago in 2018 when I just got started in comedy. Believe it or not, I was in software and more boring things, and I had studied comedy. Went to Upright Citizens Brigade, which is sort of a comedy school in the city, and I always wanted to do it professionally, but I didn't have the balls physically. I had to have them installed. No, but I guess I wasn't brave enough to just take the plunge. And so I finally did, and I put together a team, and that was our first sketch. So the story of it is, it's this firefighter that, I don't want to blow the whole sketch, but it's this firefighter who saves this family of 5 people. And even though he's this hero and he saved the day, he happens to like Donald Trump, and the reporter who finds him on the street instead of talking about how this guy just saved a family, he's obsessed with the fact that he likes Trump. And he's so focused on bringing this guy down live on air. And yeah, it's a great video that both people on both sides of the aisle like. And yeah, when viral, it got like 2.3 million views. And that's one of the things that I do with my comedy is everything needs to be, in my opinion, enjoyable for both sides of the aisle. That is what I work towards. And yeah, take care, guys. So long.
Well, that's one of the things I think that I've found most enjoyable about your stuff is that it's not just that there are people that are in the vein that do sort of equal opportunity offense, like you got with the South Park guys.
South Park
we
is
already
perfect.
noted The Simpsons. That was one of Matt Groening's famous lines is that we're equal opportunity offenders. But it seems like people on both sides of the aisle take themselves really seriously. And the only thing that you take seriously is how absurd both sides of the aisle seem to be about everything they take themselves seriously about. So I really do appreciate that about your comedy is not just that you're middle of the road, but everybody's sort of absurd reactions is what you take advantage of. I'm wondering, as we've seen like the firefighter sketch, it wasn't, 8 months later that we saw something like that exact scenario play out almost chapter and verse
about
like
creepy.
you did it. Yeah. So what is it that you think right now, especially in like the satirical vein of comedy, that makes it kind of prophetic in a way where it seems like the satire of 18 months ago is the reality of where we're at right now?
So so there's two things I think you guys might be talking about. Are you referring to in East Haverford in Philly, the actual fire department
Both.
got shut
Yes.
down?
Yes.
And Shane
also
and
maybe
Shane Gillis.
And
Yeah.
Shane getting thrown off.
Yeah.
So two things I'll talk about. So the East Haverford that's mental.
Yeah.
That was because I think it was East Haverford zip code.
It was
whatever.
That was New York, correct? It was because the sketch is set in Haverford, Pennsylvania, right?
Right.
But
yes.
it was East Haverford in New York. The fire department got shut down after one of them was outed as a right-wing conservative of some type.
Just bizarre.
And then the rest of the fire department came to back him up, and they laid off the whole fire department. That was my understanding of it. Which
And get this.
oddly,
that is the understanding.
Okay.
And get this, almost to the day a year later.
What?
Almost to the day. Obviously a different story itself, but Haverford, we pulled out of a hat. I mean, we went online or whatever it was, and I don't know, we just put Haverford.
That's
Bizarre. And so the guy that was in the sketch, what happened to him?
Yeah, so Shane was the actor, and you can take over in a minute. But he ended up he was going to join the 2021 cast of SNL, or maybe it was 2020.
No,
it was the
last
2020.
year. 2020 cast.
It was 2020 cast of SNL, and then he was on a podcast. I don't remember what it's called, but he's a part of. I'm gonna think of it in a second. There's
good.
a group.
Legion of Skanks.
They are Legion of
Hey,
Skanks.
there we go.
Yeah.
I don't think that was the podcast, but he was on one and made some off-color jokes as he was working through it. But go ahead.
Yeah, Shane's phenomenal. There's not a bad thing I could say about Shane. He
I think
is
he's
not a
hilarious.
racist. He's phenomenal. He deserves to be on SNL. And he is not a racist. I didn't think there was anything wrong with what he said. And people need to understand that if you're on a comedy podcast, you're going to make jokes. Some jokes are bad, some jokes are good, but a bad joke just means it didn't make you laugh. A bad joke doesn't necessarily mean that it was targeted to make you feel bad.
Right.
I mean, go watch a Chris Rock special. It's all racial jokes. I mean, some people don't find it funny, some people do. So listen, it was very unfortunate. I also understand that Saturday Night Live was in a very difficult position because who knows behind the scenes. I think it was Sandra Oh or one of these big celebrities who was like, I'm never going on that show again if they keep him. So listen, who knows what pressure they were under. It was just a very unfortunate situation. And I have to say, this guy is tough as nails because I think I haven't spoken to him in a couple months, but it was only a week later, and he's back on the grind, and working hard, cracking people up. I saw him live after that, and he's phenomenal. And I don't know if most people could handle that. I mean, it's just a shame, but he'll be fine. I'm not worried about him. He'll be so fine. I mean, he'll be fine.
Yeah,
and he is fine. He's fine.
Yeah, I've seen him on several podcasts after. And you, I don't want to compare him to Louis C.K., but they both took a hit career-wise. And yeah, I agree. I mean, Louis C.K.'s got a ton of money, but Shane was right back at it.
And a very distinctly separate set of issues.
Yeah, it was different.
Right.
It was different.
Right. Shane did it.
Oh, man.
Well, hey, I did want to ask. So SNL had their they made their decisions for the reasons that they did to get rid of.
Who knows?
Yeah. But it
could be, and by the way, it could be that I don't know what went on behind the scenes, but it could be that they wanted to keep him and they were dying to, and some crazy brands or wacky people push them. Who knows? I mean, really, who knows? As a business owner, you have to understand that dollars make the decisions, and I don't know. I understand. I mean, it's a crazy world, and if they get a call from Pepsi being like, "We're out," I don't know. What do you do?
Yeah.
You know, well, what do you do?
Get one with Dr. Pepper, which is way better.
Yeah,
Get a deal with them. We're down in Dallas.
Good enough. I actually believe if Shane was on SNL, he would be the top character. I mean, I think it'd be him and Chloe Fineman's phenomenal, but I think Shane would lead the crew. He's just so different, and yeah, I love working with him. Him and I have a great dynamic.
I wonder if I can just speculate. You know, I've been watching some of the more recent episodes just to kind of see, because SNL seems to hold kind of the comedic gauge of the country, whether good or bad. And one of the things that I think it was this past weekend that Pete Davidson said was that, and the scenario is that he is at work working for SNL. The way that they get around having a live studio audience is that all of the members of the studio audience are now paid, that they're employees, so that they're not, just people off the street. But one of the things he said in the monologue was that people need to quit crying about not being able to work and just stay home while he's at work in front of an audience full of people that are being paid to watch him perform live. And that is, when we're talking about the measures of absurdity, like Shane gets let go for, something ridiculous, and yet is still trying to do comedy what we've always known as the right way. And yet we've got comedians that are taking themselves way too seriously, where you're just like, okay, well, click. So how do you walk the balance of that, especially being independent? How do you find the balance between what's funny and what's the extreme of taking itself too seriously whenever you're writing and producing stuff?
First of all, wow, you're a good speaker.
Thank you.
This guy must be some pastor, right?
They do pay me to do this.
Yeah, eloquent. So first things first, I didn't see that segment with Pete.
Right.
I didn't see that. I don't know him personally. But the one thing that I do want to point out, just cutting him some slack a little bit, is some people don't realize how big of an organization something like Saturday Night Live is.
Right.
There's a group of writers, and there's producers, and there's advertising people, and there's post people and pre-people and all sorts of things going on. And there's different agendas and different topics that they want to hit. And who knows if he wrote that? Who knows if I don't judge. Point. I mean, I've seen him live. He's hilarious. And again, I didn't watch the episode, but I've been behind the scenes at some of these different, well, no, I haven't been on any major show like that, but I know people who are behind the scenes. And listen, you're getting paid a lot. Someone gives you a script. What are you going to do? I mean, it's so, I think that there are some people, like, for example, I'll put it to you this way. If there's I'm not going to name names, but if there's an SNL actor, actress that's constantly tweeting anti-Republican things, and then he or she goes and also rips on Republicans live on air. All right, that it's fair to say. But people do need to understand that there's a lot of things behind the scenes at their shows. I mean, it's a big, big organization. And it's not like Pete opened up his IG Live and was like, Staten Island people, you know?
Yeah.
Like someone wrote it, some guy wrote it, or someone wrote it, you know? It shows up on the thing, he reads it. I don't know. I go easy on Pete. But now, what do I do? Well, as you know, I just recently filmed. I spent the last few months filming a sitcom pilot called Allies. And now I'm glad that I'm on your show, because now, starting next week, I'll start releasing 3 pieces of content each week.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, we're very excited about that, having gotten a little bit of a preview of Allies. Really, really liked it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So yeah, it was the pandemic. I live in New York City, and it was very difficult to collaborate with people. So I said, it was difficult to do things consistently, at least for me. Other people were killing it. Like my friend Ryan Long is just crushing it. And he's, I think, the king right now in weekly sketches. And so shout out to Ryan. But anyway, I said, let me take some time and write something full and film that and then try and sell that. So that was how I spent a lot of the pandemic. And I'll tell you about that in a second. And now I'm about to start doing 3 pieces of content a week. So I'll answer your question to how I find the balance with regards to Allies.
Yeah.
So Allies is about a group of people who try and be allies with each other. And it stars 4 main people, and I'm one of them. And so we took the term allies from, it's the phrase that the BLM movement uses for white people to be allies to people who are Black, Indigenous, people of color.
Right.
Yeah, the LGBT does as well.
Yeah, the BIPOC?
BIPOC, BIPOC.
Yeah,
something like that. So I took that phrase and I said, well, everyone's just trying to be allies with everyone, but everyone's terrible at it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And you guys saw a preview, and in the preview, the 2 white guys sort of fail and look bad in the eyes of the Black guy in the show. But in a full 30-minute bit, there'll be segments where the Black guy and the girl, everyone just constantly. And so where do I find the balance? I think that was a question, right?
Yes.
Okay, here. So a guy named Joe Toplin, who's a mentor of mine, gave me a great piece of advice. And so Joe is I think a 2-time Emmy winner. He was the head writer for Letterman, Leno, Chase, and I don't know, maybe someone else.
That's an impressive resume.
Oh, he's a big guy. He's like 60, 65 years older. And I took his class on late night television writing several years back, and we hit it off. Anyway, I was contracted by the Daily Wire a couple weeks ago to write some satire for them. I think you guys saw the article, the Toy Story article, or one of those. And they put a pause on that because they were concerned about it being flagged as fake news, because it was satire,
right?
Because the Babylon Bee is like thrown off social media.
Yes.
And so they were concerned until the election gets certified, which it still hasn't been, obviously, as some people know. They want to not risk getting thrown off because they make so much money from Facebook. So I don't blame them. Who wants to get thrown off?
Yeah.
Anyway, where was I? So yeah, I was talking about Joe Toplin, right? I had referred to Daily Wire. Anyway, I had called him and leading up to that, and he gave me this piece of advice, which he also gave weeks ago. So cut out a lot of what I just said. It's too lengthy. I'll tell you this.
We're long format, so you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, long format. I'll tell you this. So Joe is a big writer, and we hit it off, and I called him, and I said, how do I satirize, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do I do satire without offending one side? Because I really don't want to. You shouldn't have to offend someone. And I don't mean, like, listen, there's always going to be nut jobs, wackos who get offended. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about, how do you not offend a normal person, right? And it's tough because politics is so sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
It's so sensitive. And I also said, how do you create good satire? And he said the following. He said, stay away from value judgments. And that's as follows. I'll give you a great example. And these were the examples he gave me. And this is what I do, for example, in Allies, which people will see, and in my upcoming sketches. So let's say we're making fun of Joe Biden, right? Let's say I want to make fun of Biden. I want to satirize Biden.
There's definitely a lot of content there.
Right. So he said, go after things that everyone can agree on. And there's plenty of stuff, right? He's old. He's losing it mentally. He has a son that's a crackhead. He, what else? He plagiarizes, right? He does things.
Yeah.
He says awkward things live. He goes off script,
says awkward
which
things
Trump does
live.
too.
Right. He snips people. He gets too close. There's a ton of things. But not everyone agrees that he's in bed with China. Not everyone agrees that he fired a Ukrainian prosecutor. I'm not saying it's true or not. I'm just saying not everyone agrees. But everyone agrees about those other things.
Yeah.
Everyone. And there's plenty of things to make fun of.
Mm-hmm.
Another example. Let's say Trump. This is how you make fun of Trump, right? I'll tell you. Very easy. He speaks bombastically, right? He tweets things that are wacky. They're hilarious, but they're still, sometimes he tweets wacky things. He, let's see, everyone knows that he loves women. Everyone knows that he's extravagant. Everyone thinks that, I mean, he knows that he should have won an Emmy. There's on a show that was maybe decent. There's tons of things. Everyone knows everyone agrees he doesn't want to release his taxes, right?
Right.
He's not interested.
Yeah.
He's not interested.
Yeah, he's been saying he's being audited for like 10 years or something.
Well, it's a long audit. It's a long-term thing.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, when you have billions
As soon as they're done, I'll
yeah.
put it out.
Right.
Okay,
so
buddy.
everyone knows he doesn't want to release his taxes, but not everyone agrees that he's paying off Putin. You know, so there's plenty of things. So that's how I approach satire. And there's plenty of stuff. There's plenty of material, but people aren't smart enough, I guess. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, that's been so. Ethan Nicole and Kyle Mann, the two guys that are the creative director and the editor in chief of the Babylon Bee, we're bringing them on.
We're big fans of them.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, we're bringing them on in the next few weeks.
So good.
They're
I actually know Seth Dillon, the CEO.
Oh,
the CEO.
yeah. So, and he's
Yeah.
got that guy's invested in just about anything that's going to make him money when it comes to policies and influence. I mean, with his groups, but. They talk a lot about how, and they even referenced Jerry Seinfeld, where Seinfeld said, like, the best reaction that you can get to a joke is not a laugh, it's a groan, because that's how you know that you got just close enough to everybody's feelings that you didn't hurt them, but everybody gets the joke. And so they were talking about how, like, their stuff that they think is the best is when they get just a little bit of hate mail from both sides. So that they know they're like we're teetering like right on the line of where we need to be.
So one side saying they didn't go far enough, and the other side saying don't talk about this.
Or they're both saying that you did a bad job, that you got too close to the nerve on both sides. Are like those are the ones that we think are the best ones.
Good.
So moving from like political comedy when it comes to just talking about like the politicians and those things, when you look at the social environment of the United States right now. Where is it that you think Allies really fits into speaking to the different areas and subsects that we have in the current social climate and culture that we're creating?
Yeah, he's smart.
Well, say it again. No, you broke up for a second.
Yeah, I said, yeah, he's smart.
Yeah, this guy's, I don't know what
social climates
I don't know what he's doing on this podcast.
And Jerry Springer reference.
Yeah.
It was Seinfeld.
Anytime someone says social and climate, I'm like, now I got to study.
Yeah.
So, repeat the question for a third. No, I'm kidding. So, Allies are actually built with Hollywood in mind, because they said if it can appeal. If it can make it in Hollywood, then it will be safe enough. And so I want it to be safe enough for that, because I want to reach the largest audience. My goal as a human is to make as many people laugh, right? That doesn't mean doing stupid comedy that's just PC comedy. But I know that if I can satirize culture, but still make it where Hollywood will accept it, I'll reach the most people. Andrew Schultz is a great example. I don't know Andrew, but he just got a show on Netflix called Schultz Saves America, and he's raw. I mean, this guy's raw. And yeah, it's great because you reach more people. Anyway, to answer the question. So repeat the question.
So, you got it, man. So what you're doing with Al is you're creating different pockets for everybody to fit in based on where the American culture is, right?
Yeah.
So how do you walk the line in creating stuff that's comedic while talking about the subculture? Like, it's easy to make fun of our politicians because they're so polarizing,
Right.
but the areas of subculture, you're really getting close to touching on those values. So how are you walking that line, and where do you see like the key points of comedy there?
It's all relatability. And so the way that we write Allies, the way I wrote that one episode, now we're writing our future episodes, is I would just come up with one topic and then we'll throw it in. So it's hard without spoiling that particular episode, but in that episode, we're making signs for a protest. So that's a topic. And then I think about how we can relate to that. In that particular episode, in New York City, the basketball courts were shut down because they took the rims down. So because they didn't want people playing basketball and spreading the virus. Then what happened? People who play hockey came in and
Oh
used the
yeah, I
cars.
love that.
Yeah, which is actually more
I thought it was
people on the
hilarious.
court than what you would have on basketball.
Right. And that's a real thing. So we just came up with topics that people can relate to. And I think as long as you stay relatable, you can do cultural comedy. If you try and force things that no one can relate to, then that's when you get into this, I don't want to say offensive, it's just like annoying.
Mm-hmm.
It's annoying. And you see that in a lot of sketch comedy on some of the mainstream networks. And so for me, it's just, if you stay relatable, you know that people will laugh because people like thinking, oh, I get that. I see where he's going with that. And I relate. And as long as you're staying relatable and you can write a good joke, I think you'll be successful.
So do you think that the kneeling sketch is
with Gilbert.
is relatable
With Iago?
Yeah, with Iago.
Yeah.
Because that is very polarizing too. Backing the players kneeling or standing for the anthem.
Right. So what we did there, so it's funny, a lot of my conservative friends didn't like that sketch because they thought that he was too flagrant and cursing and things like that.
Sure.
But
So I'll say this for the cameras to anyone listening from his church, not safe for work, not safe for church, but at home, hilarious.
Yeah. Don't watch it with your kids, but do absorb the truth in the fact that the NFL might have pivoted for obvious reasons.
Oh, I don't want to interrupt your train of thought, but I do want to say I thought it was hilarious, but more importantly, to me, I started thinking about all the things that were happening leading up to or right after this controversy came out, and the concussion thing was a huge thing. I remember listening to the sports radio station here in Dallas, 1310 The Ticket, little plug, awesome station, and it was concussion talk constantly, and all of a sudden it just went away, and then Jerry Jones, we're in Dallas, so Jerry Jones walking out arm in arm with the Cowboys and then kneeling together. That's definitely what happened. Which,
yeah. So, so Shane actually, I think it was Shane and John, they were working for me at the time, came up with that. And we wrote that. We actually had a different idea, but then the kneeling was in the news. And so we said, let's do something with kneeling. And we knew Gilbert was coming in. And Shane wrote that sketch that day, like a day before. So it was the first sketch he ever wrote. And it came out great. And yeah, with that, the way to not offend is, it's just, first of all, he's a very over the top character.
Oh,
Gilbert.
man. Yeah.
It's very over the top. And yeah, I don't think we really touched on whether or not kneeling was good or bad.
Yeah, there wasn't really a judgment on that.
No, we just said that there's a conspiracy behind it.
Yeah, the owners went, kneeling is great because no one's talking about concussions anymore, which is 100% what happened.
Yeah, so I think that to answer your question, how do you do a kneeling sketch? I think the way that we did it, whether or not we realized it consciously, was don't bash whether or not they're kneeling. Just come at it from a totally different perspective. And so we're able to make fun of the kneeling situation without making fun of the people who are kneeling. And that's what we did. And that's what we do with a lot of the same. We did the same thing with the firefighter and the same thing with, yeah.
So how was it working with Gilbert and having him yell at you?
This guy, I was a little upset because we hired a guy to come in and take all behind the scenes pictures and videos, and the guy like lost all the footage.
Oh, what?
Man.
Yeah, we don't have it. Gilbert we were dying.
Yeah.
I mean, the outtakes were insane. We couldn't move forward. And what's funny is I always wanted to know, since I was a little kid, is that how he really talks?
Yeah. It is when the cameras are off. Does he just have a normal guy voice like a
Larry the Cable
Guy? He was just on the B, just this normal dude.
Less than normal. How's that? Less than normal. When I say he talks like this, like a quiet guy, quiet as anything.
No way.
What?
Like
Get out.
Yeah, the total opposite. When I say polar opposite, I mean polar opposite.
Wow.
You would not believe it. He could call you. How's this? He could call you and talk like he would really talk, and you would not even know it's Gilbert Gottfried.
Really?
That's how he really talks. Yeah, because he was friends with my partner in some of those sketches, Tom Leopold, and they were very, very close. They came up together. And so that's how we got Gilbert.
Right.
Yeah, because
Tom brought him in.
Tom wrote on Seinfeld. Is that right?
Yeah. Tom wrote a lot of Seinfeld.
So how did you... Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say that's how we got in. And I'm in the room when they're just catching up. So I'm listening to them. And that's how I'm listening to Gilbert talk. And I'm like,
With it.
Do you want to meet Gilbert Gottfried? Not unless the cameras are on, because they'll just ruin the image.
Second the cameras go on.
He's out!
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was just gibberish.
That's crazy.
So how'd you get hooked up with Tom?
So I got introduced to Tom by a guy named Preston Gitlin, who ran a company called Comedy Wire, which was, I don't know if they're still around, but Preston's not part of it anymore. Comedy Wire was a service that basically you can hire people to come up with jokes for you. Anyway, I was Googling. Oh, no. I took Joe Toplin's course.
Right.
And I said, Joe, he asked me what I was doing. And I said, I'm putting together this show, and it's going to be stuff that's not so politically correct. And I'm looking for people who are brave enough to go in that realm. And he said, you should get in touch with Preston because he's like that. And so that's how I got in touch with Preston. It wasn't from the Comedy Wire, but that's who he was. And now I don't know what Preston's doing. I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago, but I don't know if he's still doing comedy or investments or something now. Anyway, Preston had this company called Comedy Wire. And Comedy Wire had a lot of advisors. They had an advisory board. And so they had a lot of big comedians, like Chevy Chase was on the advisory board. A couple comedy club owners were on the advisory board. It was a company that connected you with comedy writers. And Tom was one of the people on the advisory board. So I connected with Preston. I told him what I was trying to do. And he said, you got to meet this guy, Tom Leopold. He's a conservative, and he's one of the enormously successful writer. And he's at the point in his life, because he's around, I guess, 70, 71. He's at the point in his life where he just wants to do what he thinks is funny. A lot of what he thinks is funny is not allowed on a lot of the networks that he typically writes for.
Right.
I mean, he's writing for Will and Grace. He's writing for Ellen. He's writing for these sorts of shows later in his life. And it's big time gig, but he wanted to do things like The Fireman and Gilbert and stuff like that. And I guess once you get super popular, God willing, you eventually make it to mainstream, but it's hard to show them a script like that if you haven't, if you're not already big.
Yeah.
So anyway,
or you're not on a cable network.
Yeah. Right. And so I connected with Tom, and we hit it off right away. He's the funniest person I know. No one's funnier to me than Tom.
Well, that's a good person to be connected with, is the funniest person that you know when you're doing comedy.
Yes,
So-
definitely.
Very
He's the
simple
funniest guy.
logic.
Yeah,
So simple.
Yeah.
So did you?
Yeah.
It sounds like you
You're
took
the
this.
brains here.
Yeah. So you took this class when you were coming up. What made you want to do comedy, and how did you get involved with sketch comedy? Because we were talking pre-show that you didn't go the stand-up comedy route, which in New York there is an absolutely insane and hyper competitive, stand-up comedy scene. But you found this niche in sketch comedy, doing things online that's gotten you a huge following. You're absolutely brilliant at it. How did you choose that path?
Thanks. So I don't know if it was the best decision or not. I don't know. But time will tell. But here was my thinking. I came from a business background.
Okay.
So I was a software developer. And no, I'm sorry. I managed software development and had a startup previously creating software for big restaurant chains. And so I had done that for a while, and I was very good at managing large teams.
Okay.
And so I said, I have two options. I knew I was leaving the company that I worked for. So I said, am I going to go just throw out all that experience and then just do stand up and try and get discovered, right? And wait for someone to find me? Or should I take the experience that I learned and channel that into a comedy endeavor, which is a bit more entrepreneurial? So I said, let me do that. And so I put together, I'm very good at hiring people. I'm very good at inspiring people. And I think I really do bringing out their best work. I really do. I will put that up. And so I did that. I put together a great team with Tom and Shane and this guy named John and a couple of other people, so a couple of big names. And I got some money behind it, a couple of executive producers, if you will, because those sketches cost money,
Right?
You got to produce it. They're not cheap. And I did it, and that worked out. And yeah, that's the route that I took. And then we were getting ready those sketches were actually sort of previews for the full-on late night show.
Okay.
That was going to be a full 30-minute show or whatnot. There were going to be a couple sketches each episode. Then I would interview people, do some stand-up. We'd have our different cast in the show. And we got an offer from Blaze TV. And we realized quickly, soon after we took the deal, that it wasn't nearly enough capital to pull this off. It just wasn't, to do a full 30-minute show. And so we had pivoted to just doing sketches. And so I was delayed a large chunk of months trying to pull off that late night show with very, very, very little money. At that point, Shane was now taking off on stand-up, right? By that point, he was going towards SNL, and Blaze wanted us to go. Skanking up. The Blaze wanted me to go in a particular direction also that I don't think would have been good for them. For a couple of the other guys, given that it was a right-leaning network, obviously. And so I did my thing there. It was all right. And then, I left last December 2019. So it was basically like a year-long endeavor, December 2019. And then the pandemic hit right away.
Yeah.
So it was like the first year I spent developing the show with the boys. And then I got the show. And then the pandemic hit. So it's like, that's why I say time will tell, right?
Right.
But I mean, I'm confident, but that was the route that I took. It was because I had this other experience. And so right off the bat, I just put together a team. And what do you do when you have a group of people? You don't do stand-up together. You make sketches. You write. You act. And so that's how I fell quickly into sketch. Yeah.
And your sketch stuff is absolutely hilarious, and obviously you're not just great at writing the sketch stuff, but if you've been hired by the Daily Wire, you got to be pretty good at writing the satire stuff, which we've talked about a little bit. Do you find it easier to write the sketch comedy, or do you find it easier to write like satire articles?
So the satire that I did, I only wrote a couple articles, but from what I was told, there were a couple of maybe the biggest ones on the site over those couple days.
Right.
And I wrote them as sketches.
Okay.
So that's sort of the same approach. So a good sketch generally has a strong game, which is, so for example, in The Firefighter, it's reporter tries to ruin firefighter's reputation for being a Trump supporter. And then you have beats. Okay, so first someone shows up and then he says something bad and then he shows him drinking and then this and that. So with the Toy Story article, for example, I said it was a satire piece that I think it said people want Woody canceled for crimes against Native Americans.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
Toy of genocide. That's what was the title.
Toy of genocide. And then I just wrote that like a sketch. So-and-so said this, so-and-so said that, so-and-so said this, and you have beats.
Right.
And then you wrap it up. And so I don't think one is easier or harder than the other. I really don't. It's the hardest thing for me it is just once you have the premise, you have a strong premise, you just keep writing until it's funny. Like,
Right.
I'll know if it's funny. If it's making me laugh on the page, I know it's funny. And I'm not worried. But you coming up with a strong premise is the most difficult thing, because that's where the brilliance comes in, right? Oh, I had to think of this, you know?
Yeah.
See, I didn't actually know that the Daily Wire did satire.
Yeah, Andrew Clavin, I think, is who typically does their satire stuff, right? And his is like heavily marked so that it doesn't, like, he'll have satire in brackets after the headline.
Well, it was a
and all
couple
that.
weeks ago that I read an article from them, and I went, "Is this satire?" It has to be. And there was no mention of it, and it was the article about the former Israeli space chief that said that aliens.
Oh, that's real.
I know aliens do
Yeah,
exist.
yeah.
Trump knows about it. Almost let the cat out of the bag, and that there's a galactic federation that's waiting for humans to evolve. And I was like, "There's no way. Like there's no way this is real."
I'm looking forward to the Allies episode that gets a hold of that.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Something with the Galactic Federation.
I think that'd be
But
great.
yeah, so the Daily Wire, they weren't doing satire. Clavin was doing some satire, and it said satire after it. And so someone connected me with Daily Wire, and they said, we want to get started with like really good satire, and we want it to be different than the B. We want it to be. I had spoken to the editor-in-chief there, John Bickley. What were you gonna say?
Don't say different from the bee, like the onion, not funny.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Oh.
Hey,
No,
I
different in the
used
sense
to
that-
love the onion for the record,
Yeah.
but he convinced me to check out the bee, and it's way better.
Babylon Bee is so funny. But the B is mostly, it's headline driven.
Right.
So it's headline driven, small article.
Mm-hmm.
Daily Wire wanted more longer article, and I think it's because it has to do with time spent on site. I mean, they're brilliant at business. So I think it had something to do with, for business reasons, they wanted them with 400 to 500 words. So we said, all right, we're going to do them as sketches. And I said, I'm only doing this if you allow me to publish it without the word satire. I said, there's no way I'm doing this.
Okay.
Awesome.
And I said, I'm not doing it. You could pay me whatever. I said, the whole fun of it needs to be people seeing this and being like, no way.
Right.
And otherwise, it's like, what's the point? It's not. It's like, it's stupid. And so they did it, and they were hugely successful. And that's why they got a call, apparently, from the guys at the top saying someone's going to report this as fake news, and we're going to get thrown off.
Oh man,
So
they would.
said,
They would get crucified immediately.
Oh yeah, yeah, and you don't want to get snoped, which is I think the big
Right.
Or
scare
Facebook
for,
checked.
Yep. Yeah.
well, we'll see. We'll see. So they said, listen, we could do it with satire. But I said, at this point, it's like, I know I'll be successful if I create good comedy. If you pay me, but I'm creating stuff that people think is like, this is stupid or lame, doesn't serve me well in the long run.
Right.
And I don't want to put up things that, I don't know, it's like, you don't want it to say satire. That's the whole fun of it.
Exactly. Is the ability to trick people with something that has a good enough premise that they're like,
Right.
man, I hope this isn't true, and then you read it. Yeah.
Right.
When you're looking long term, you talked a little bit about doing the late night gig, which
Yeah.
we were both really excited about.
Yeah, I hope it still happens.
Yeah, because
I
it's-
don't
Thank
watch
you.
any of it. Kimmel.
No, I don't, because so many of the guys, everything's so agenda driven, one way or the other, and
I watched Letterman growing up. It was my favorite thing every
Yeah.
night.
Yeah.
so long term, is that something that you still want to do? Is your big like long-term goal to still be a late night host, even if Allies becomes successful whenever it gets picked up? Is that still what you want to do?
Such a good talker, this guy.
Do you want the chair? That's I'm just to
Right.
sum it up.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that I will be there eventually, because I think that it's a good position for me. I don't think I'd ever suggest I do something or go after something that I don't think I'd be really great for. And I think that I'd be a good host, and I think that I could lead a show well. And yeah, I think I'll be there eventually at some point. I'm still new to the game. It's been 5 years since I left my job, 3 years, I guess, since I started doing sketches. This is going into my 3rd year. So we got time, but I think this year will be a good one.
Well,
Starts off with you guys, right?
Well, hey, there you go.
Going out with a bang.
Evidence of a good year.
Well, again, I'm a huge fan. I'm following. I'm ready to check out the 3 pieces of content per week and the Allies show when it comes out, and then your inevitable rise to
late night dominance.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank you
rooting
guys
for you,
much.
man.
Hey,
so
Thank you.
where can our audience check you out? We got Facebook, YouTube.
So yeah, check me out on Instagram at Dweck Show, DWECKSHOW, and also on YouTube if you type in Dweck Show. But I think Instagram will be good, even though most of my content now will go to YouTube. But because I'm just about to get started, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll know when I start posting.
Perfect.
Perfect.
All right, guys, check it out. Victor Dweck, man, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thank you guys so much.
I appreciate it. Have a good one.
All right, take
Have a
care,
good one,
guys.
buddy.
Call me anytime. All
Will
right,
do.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Victor Dweck.
VD.
How about that?
Yeah. Awesome.
I will tell you, going into this interview, I had the feeling that it was going to go one of two ways. That it was going to either be phenomenal or that it was going to be awful.
I knew it was going to be phenomenally awful.
Yeah, well,
From my end.
What happened in the interview is that once again we found somebody that we shouldn't have been talking to, and a great guest shined through. The guy's got
He saved the day.
Yeah, he's got so much interesting and cool things that he's doing, but also his comedic philosophy I found really, really refreshing. That it's not about attacking somebody's values, but rather attacking sort of the absurdity that surrounds our persona or a certain manner of thinking. And it was great, and he comes across as very and it might seem a bit weird to say it this way, but he comes across as very caring about the people that are in each one of these different camps. Mm-hmm. But also,
I mean, he nailed it with.
Yeah, he's also trying to bring about a good self-awareness.
He just wants to make everybody laugh, as many people laugh as you can. That's great. I mean, and I think we've talked about this before, but Norm Macdonald had a famous quote about. I believe it was SNL doing a bit on Trump. I think he was talking about Alec Baldwin.
Oh, okay,
that you have to like the person that you're satirizing to some degree.
Yeah.
In order for it to be funny. Otherwise, it just comes across mean.
Well, and that was like Dana Carvey and Georgia H.W. Bush had a great...
friends.
Yeah, they were friends. They had a great
They
relationship.
didn't agree on everything.
Right, but they talked on the phone the first time that Dana Carvey did, and George H.W. Bush, he called him and said, hey, saw your thing at Saturday Night Live, and Dana Carvey's telling the story, and he's like, I was mortified. And he goes, really funny stuff. Really liked it. And Dana Carvey was like, oh my gosh, you serious? And invited him to come to the White House and hang out. So, but those things don't happen anymore because we've gotten so vicious in the way that we've done comedy.
There's so much content. There's so much fertile ground for, if you're looking politically and the two big political pillars that we have of Biden and Trump, there's so much stuff to make fun of that you don't have to hate them.
Right. And I think that
either way, there's so much funny stuff.
Yeah, and the stuff that he was talking about, I think is great. And there are a lot of his things, and I know we said this in the intro a bit, and even in the interview, that there are some of his things that are geared specifically for adults, that this is adult content. It is not safe for work. You don't want to watch it with your kids because of language and some of the things that are touched on. But I will say overall that the stuff that he brings about, these are the things that, like, if we're in the throes of the holiday season, one of the things that we always dread is the Thanksgiving and the Christmas Day conversations with our family members that are on opposite ends of the spectrum from us, whether it's political, whether it's religious, whether it's in just simple things like finances, because those are three things you're not supposed to talk about. You don't talk about religion, politics, or money in good company or in polite company or whatever. But this style of comedy that he does allows you to be able to look at each side of an argument and say, okay, well, I'm actually not on either end of this. I'm closer to the middle, and allows two people that might be opposing to have an actual conversation about what they thought was funny, what they thought wasn't, and what things they don't believe, so that we can all realize how much closer we are as a country by being able to laugh at one another. And he really takes comedy back to sort of the joy of its roots. And that it's supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be things that we can all laugh at, but it's also supposed to show us the absurdity of some parts of our own belief, to where we can say, okay, this is a little ridiculous. I'm not quite that bad. Or please tell me that you're not this guy, to where somebody else goes, no, I'm not. Like, you're wrong, but I'm not him. You know, and I just think that's great. Also, he was a super nice guest. Like, how I can't think of very many people that we've had on that were not just as open about everything and as talkative and as gracious.
Yeah, because that was one of the first things we said pre-roll.
Right.
Is we said, hey, is there anything that you'd like to cover, or specifically us not to bring up at all? And he was like, no, ask me anything.
Yeah,
whatever you want, bring it all up.
Willing to
Except
talk about
for,
all of it.
No,
yeah. I thought that was really cool too, because there are, to pull back the curtain on a little bit of a behind the scenes thing, there are plenty of guests that we have on that say, hey, look, I've got this and this going on. There are, these 5 things that I'm not going to touch on. Don't talk about any of my books that were published before X date or whatever, because I want to keep things current. Or, there are some things in those now that are problematic. He was like, no, I'm willing to talk about anything and everything, past, present, where I'm going in the future.
Open, gracious, and I made sure to get him to agree at the very end that we are friends now.
Yeah. You swap cell phone numbers.
So he's my friend.
We're all cool. Yeah, so
I think I might start doing that. I might, if there's a guest, I'll say, would you be my friend?
Can we?
I don't want to send you a Facebook request. I want to agree that we're friends.
Yeah, and then if people question it, you can just pull up on your cell phone.
No, look,
here's
we're friends.
Here,
he
I
agreed.
said we're friends. This person agreed.
And he shook his head and he said, yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's pretty
friends,
awesome.
Friends
so,
of the show.
Big thanks to Victor Dweck for coming on the show, man. Great interview.
Yes.
Ton of fun getting to have you on here. Make sure that you check his stuff out. And
DweckShow.com.
Yeah, DweckShow.com. Be looking forward to Allies getting picked up. And that'll be another
3 pieces of content per week.
Yeah, 3 pieces of content
I'm
per
really
week.
excited about that, because I love those little sketches that he's put out.
Yeah, they're smartly done, and it addresses.
We got a full-length show coming out, but go ahead.
No. It addresses a lot of the stuff that we're facing societally, like from the side,
without attacking the values, which I thought was a really interesting way to put what I've thought.
Right.
Like the kneeling. I don't want to recap all of it.
No, go for it.
But you can make fun of it without saying that it's right or wrong.
Yeah.
Because it's split down the middle mostly. I don't know exactly on that issue, but the country's pretty much split down the middle. Let's all just take a step back and laugh at it.
Yeah.
Because it is a very absurd.
And the way that it all was handled as well. So check out his stuff. Like we said, there's stuff in the description if you're listening to the audio version
the way
of this.
It was handled, yeah.
In the show notes here, if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure that you like and subscribe. Click the little bell so that you get notifications whenever we come on. Bing. And whenever we've got new episodes that will be coming.
I'm an idiot on
every
this one.
week. Well, this is not new. That's not new. But thank you guys very much for listening. We hope that each and every one of you had an awesome holiday season. And now that we are into 2021, brace yourselves. We are all in this together, and we are looking forward to more good content from Victor Dweck. And you can expect more mediocre content from us.
Yes.
That's it. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching the Rev and the Reprobate.
Hey guys, I'm Victor Dweck. I'm recording this at the end of the interview, and I want to give everyone a fair warning. It's not worth listening to. Rev and Reprobate are a complete disaster. Not only have they wasted my time, they will waste yours. So I suggest listening to something visibly more successful. If you need help, go to your iPhone or iPad or Android, whatever it might be. There's an app called Podcasts, and listen to something in the top 10. And once these guys, okay, these two jerk offs break, I don't know, the top 1,000 at least, maybe then give them a fair shake. But up until then, I don't know, go with something better.